Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of What's on My Desk, and be alarmed for this episode. I'll tell you why right after the intro. So why be alarmed? Well, because I brought a couple alarm watches with me. One is the Ulysse Nardin Sonata, and the other one, the 5707 BB from Breguet. But I also brought the Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Compressor Extreme Lab, as they called it. And this is an alarming watch because of how extreme indeed the watchmaking that went into this watch and the rigorous testing is. And this is actually a watch, I don't remember the guy's name, comment below. You've asked me to review this watch when I get it, and lo and behold, I got one in. And I will talk about this watch a little bit and show you what it looks like and discuss what's so special and alarming about this particular watch. First, let's talk about alarms. I've talked about the complications of watches, how useful and not useful they are in the past. I'll link the episode up there. Alarms is one of those functionality that's extremely useful in the watch. Again, personally, I set the alarm on my iPhone, but for the most part, this is a good tool to serve as a reminder during the day if you need to do something at a particular time. An alarm is just a good tool overall, whether it's a reminder or whether it's something that's going to wake you up. Again, seems like, oh wow, what's the big deal? I have an alarm clock, or I can set the alarm on my iPhone, blah, 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 blah. But you have to think of it in terms of what these things are. These things are mechanical masterpieces, and there's no battery, there's no computer in this, and somebody put this together by hand to be able to set an alarm and have it go off just by setting off a few buttons. So I'm going to start with the Sonata. When this watch came out 10 some years ago, this was the talk of the town for Ulysse Nardin, probably one of their more popular selling models, and rightfully so, because it's a beautiful watch overall. Seems at a first glance it seems a little bit busy, and rightfully so. This is a dual time big date with a countdown functionality, and obviously the on and off functionality for the alarm. It's called the Sonata because of the way the alarm chimes. Automatic movement, case reminiscent of that of a GMT perpetual. Right now we have, as you can see, the alarm indicator at 1 o'clock. Right now the alarm is set at 12 to go off at 12:15. The on and off button for the actual alarm is right here. So right now it's off, and by clicking it over, it's now on. So now I'm just going to simply take the time and move it over to the desired time, and we'll hear the alarm go off. Okay, so Sonata, because it actually chimes as a hour striker, it chimes as a mid repeater, and I've talked about Ulysse Nardin hour strikers and mid repeaters. They're pretty famous for that. Things like the Genghis Khan or the Forgeron mid repeaters, etc., or just the regular hour strikers. And what they did is they took the same gongs that they utilize in those watches and they put it into a Sonata, obviously at a fraction of a cost. And usually when you get into an hour striker or mid repeater, you at 100,000 at a minimum, and all the way up was a 600,000-700,000 depending on the models. And this particular watch retailed at 55,900, which I felt was very, very reasonable considering the fact that this is a dual time. And again, one of my favorite GMT watches are Ulysse Nardin because of the plus minus GMT. So you have the two buttons, which is the plus and the minus, which is on the right or on the left. That quickly changes your hour hand to go into a different time zone, which is extremely convenient. Again, not a bad price tag considering what's in this particular watch. Now again, discussed about how Ulysse Nardin kind of fell off based on the fact that some of its biggest markets fell off, such as Russia, Ukraine, etc. But hence, point on a secondary market, this is a watch that again somewhat fell off. I mean, retail price $55,000. I think you find these things at around that $20,000 price range. When you're in the hot market and these things are selling like hotcakes, they tend to overproduce, and these were overproduced. Yeah, we're selling this watch online for $19,500. I think this is a smoking deal nevertheless. And again, I'm not trying to sell you this watch. I'm just kind of stating the facts. I know you guys want to talk about resale value. I don't recommend you go out there and buy a brand new Sonata. There are other new variations of the Sonata out there. But if this is a watch for you, this is a watch that you like, I strongly urge that you get out there and get it pre-owned, because let's say you get out there and buy it for $20,000 and you lose another 10%, and the resale goes down to $18,000, $17,000, even $16,000, not that huge of a loss versus buying this watch brand new in the high 30s or low 40s and then having to resell it at half of what you paid for it. Nevertheless, this is a great watch. I love the way it looks, the way it sits on the wrist too. It's a nice large size watch. It's a 43 millimeter. Let me show you this guy on the wrist. It's a beautiful watch. I mean, what else can be said about this? And it sounds great as an alarm. I'm not so sure if that alarm would actually wake me up though. Speaking of waking somebody up, let's look at the Breguet's alarm. This is the 5707 BB. This is a watch they made in white gold, which is this version. They also made it in the yellow gold. I'll pop that up on the screen. Again, unmistakably a Breguet, classy, dressy, beautifully done Breguet watch, beautifully decorated movement as usual. Everything about this watch screams Breguet, unmistakably. Breguet. Very clean dial, much cleaner than that of the Ulysse Nardin that I just showed you. And let's see, you have the power reserve indicator for the alarm here. You have the alarm setting here. So right now this alarm is set to 11:40. Now let's set it off and I'll show you what this guy's. And again, forgot to tell you, on off is right here. So no sound, there you go. Now that's an alarm that's gonna wake you up. And if you have this on this wrist, the watch vibrates vigorously. You can feel it, you can hear it. Definitely something that's going to wake you up. And as the power reserve winds down, the alarm will actually turn off. This is still a GMT. If you pull out the top crown here, it will change just the hour hand alone, and there's your 24-hour indicator right there. A bit of a tough choice between the two alarms, and the reason for that, well, A, they're very different from each other. This is a lot bulkier, a lot bigger, a lot sportier. This is a classy Breguet. From a functionality perspective, in terms of waking up, this is definitely the one that's going to take the cake. From a pleasant sound perspective, you know, you're not really getting a minute repeater, but you're certainly getting the chimes of a minute repeater or of an hour striker. Definitely the Sonata will take the cake there. Retail prices, this is cheaper. This is $40,700 versus $55,800. And the amount of complications in both is the same, with the exception that this chimes rather than sort of making a true alarm noise, which is really what it does. It's really comparable to an alarm clock. Ian, can you play the Breguet alarm they just played versus a regular alarm? More or less sound the same. What do you guys think? Yeah, definitely. Resale value, the fate of this is also, I guess, somewhat the same as this, because remember I told you guys Breguet was also extremely popular in Russia and Kazakhstan and all those other regions, and you know, when they stopped selling, they sort of took a dump. But nevertheless, so today this watch, you're going to find it in the mid to high teens, depending on the condition of the watch and how clean it is, making it a really good deal just the same. I always hold these in stock, white gold, yellow gold, because they're still sellable. And if before they used to sell in the high 20s and low 30s on the secondary market, today with these things selling at $16,000 to $17,000, they still sell like hotcakes because people recognize this watch. This is an iconic watch from Breguet. It's a useful watch in terms of complication, and they still sell. This will sell a lot faster than that of Ulysse Nardin, because again, even though Breguet was producing heavier at the time of high demand, they still didn't produce as many of these as they did of the Ulysse Nardin Sonatas. And again, many variations of the Sonata out there. I'll throw a few up on the screen for you guys to see. Normally I would choose between three watches, but I'm actually going to make my choice with both of them. And for me, the answer is I have no idea. And the reason for that is because I love the convenience, I love the size of the Sonata, I love the chimes. I love the fact that it's a beautiful chime, that of a minute repeater for not the money of a minute repeater. I love the plus minus GMT on the Nardin, so I tend to lean towards this watch. But Breguet is, again, this classic. It's as classic as it gets. Again, in my eyes, the godfather of all watchmaking, and this is just a watch it sinks to me and it's just super appealing to me. So I can't choose between the two. So how about you guys choose? You tell me which alarm watch you would wear, which alarm watch you like most, considering that they're trading more or less in the same price range today. Last but not least, I guess I could say I saved the best for last. I'm going to talk about the Jaeger-LeCoultre Extreme Lab. How does that fit into the theme of the alarm watches? It really doesn't. Remember, I do know that one or even two guys asked me about reviewing this particular watch. Should I get it in hand? I have it in hand, and I'm going to review this last. And now I'm not going to start by showing you the watch. I'm going to start with the price tag of the watch. This watch retails for $69,500, and if you look at the watch at a glance, you're saying to yourself, wait a minute, this is just a chronograph. I do see a GMT in there, but why is it so expensive? What makes it so special? Well, the number one thing that makes this watch special is the fact that it's a watch that never needs to be lubricated. That's right, you heard it. There's no oil in this machine. This watch never has to be lubricated, and it will continue ticking for you. Wow, how did they achieve that? I'll get into that in detail in a little bit. Again, I don't want to make this a huge nuts and bolt thing, but this watch is definitely worth it diving into. And I'm not even going to start with the case. I'm going to start with the straps and the buckle. You'll note that the buckle is, I actually removed the buckle purposely. It's actually easily removable. This is an adjustable buckle, allowing you to wear the watch shorter or longer by moving this particular piece around. And you can easily snap the strap back in by simply inserting it into these holes and taking it on off. And the reason for that is because this watch does come with two straps, a leather and the rubber. Right now this watch is on a rubber strap. And let's talk about the strap. This is a huge watch. It's 47 millimeter. For a guy like me who has a small wrist, if I put this on my wrist, you would think, wow, this should be huge on me. Well, indeed it's not. If you look at it on my wrist, it seems like it hugs my wrist perfectly. And the reason for that is because the straps are ratcheted straps. That's right, they're ratcheted. You can actually hear it as I adjust the straps. If you guys hear that noise, that's the straps. They seem to be on a ratchet. And what that does is, for a guy that has a smaller wrist, such as myself, it allows me to wear a 47 millimeter watch where the watch will actually hug my wrist a lot more comfortably than if this was a regular design. Because in the usual case scenario, on a guy that has a normal size wrist, the strap is sort of affixed and it's sort of straight this way, but if you have a smaller wrist, it allows you to adjust it down further more, or up if you have a much bigger wrist, to allow for comfort of wear, which is a pretty big deal if you ask me in terms of the design. They really took their time designing the strap and the buckle as well. If you look at the strap itself, it even has grooves back here to allow for sweat to sort of come through and not get stuck underneath. And that's really this is a sports watch, and it's a watch that's designed to withstand vigorous punishment, as we say, which is why, again, the whole concept behind it not having to be lubricated makes it probably one of the most rugged watches out there. So why 69,000? Well, obviously it is a rose gold version. It also comes in titanium, but besides it being a chronograph GMT, it's not just that. It's not just a chronograph GMT. First of all, you have jumping minutes for the chronographs, which is a huge deal. It's a huge complication. You have your hour indicators here, but the minutes jump right here in the middle in style of a jump hour, which from a horological perspective is extremely difficult to achieve. You also have the lever selector here, reminiscent that of a concept watch from AP. I don't know if you guys can see that. And you simply click the button here to go to the desired indicator, whether you want to set the GMT, set the watch, or put it back in neutral. This is a watch that does not have a screw down crown, yet it's waterproofed up to 100 meters, which is pretty damn crazy if you ask me, and again, stems back to the design of the watch. This is a 65-hour power reserve watch. The fact that it's 65 hours is already pretty impressive, but the way they show it, look at the power reserve indicator here across the top. Right now it's actually fully wound, so you see this entire gauge filled with white. As the power reserve winds down, you'll start seeing red until it gets all the way down to the bottom when the watch is fully empty. AM/PM indicator on the bottom, automatic movement. And as I'm in the back of the watch, it's also worth mentioning, we talked about the strap a second ago, is that the strap changes out easily. These tabs lift up like so, and the strap pops right out, so you can put in the other strap that comes with the watch. Again, very easily done, very convenient, and very comfortable. If you decide to go diving 15 meters into the water, simply release these two levers, put on a rubber strap, and dive away. Again, all made for ease of use. This watch adds up to over 700 parts. So this is, at a first glance, not as complicated, but indeed a very, very complicated watch. And not only that, they show you the complications. They have a skeletonized dial that shows off all the complications, the business of that movement, of just what it takes to put this watch together. It looks like a minute repeatedly, but it's actually a stop lever. So you want to set your watch accurately. You put that down, it'll stop all the action on the watch. It'll stop the balance wheel, it'll stop the entire watch, allow you to set the watch accurately. Then when you release it, the watch will go again. Design. I mean, look at the design of the case. Titanium, rose gold, ceramic crown. Just everything about this watch is fairly avant-garde. And mind you, this watch is fairly old already. They came out with the first Extreme Lab in 2007. That was 12 years ago. And I tell you what, if this watch came out today and they showed this in Basel in a month or so, I would not be surprised. It would do just as well today as it did 12 years ago. This watch was way ahead of its time in terms of innovation, in terms of design. Look at the date wheel. Remind you of somebody? Yeah, Richard Mille. They exposed the date wheel so you can sort of see the entire date wheel in behind the movement. Hopefully you guys can see that with me using my iPhone. Now mind you, the Extreme Lab watch was done as a tribute to a watch that Jaeger did in the past back in 1958, right? Around the same time that NASA started. And they needed a certified chronometer, an accurate chronometer, while they were conducting their geophysical experiments. The watch needed to be rugged, and the watch needed to withstand extreme conditions such as high, low temperatures. So this is why they call this the Extreme Lab, obviously. Lots of innovations in the movement. This watch is comparable to that of innovation of Richard Mille, minus the price tag, mind you. A watch like this, if Richard Mille put this much innovation into a watch, this watch would probably be a $300,000 watch. Think in terms of the split-second chronograph, the RM004, that trades around $300,000 to $400,000, right, depending on materials. This is what you're going to get, this type of innovation. I believe that when this watch came out, this watch was ahead of its time. I guess it kind of fits into the theme of alarm watches. It is alarming how much innovation went into this watch, and the alarming is the retail price tag. And what you can pick this watch up for today on a secondary market, on a pre-owned market, you can pick this watch up around that half price tag, 40 to 50% off. And that's really alarming because I feel like this watch deserves a lot more. I feel like this is a watch that should be trading over its retail value. I feel this is a watch for those that can appreciate the complexity of the movement, the complexity of and the innovation that went into this movement. But unfortunately, we live in a marketing world today, and those with better marketing win. And again, I didn't get into all the details of the nuts and bolts of the movement. There's much more to discuss. I just don't want to spend a half hour discussing this particular watch. But if you want to know more about this watch, I urge you to get out and read some of the blogs that are on there. There's plenty of them out there to get you sort of the more detailed description of the movements, the balance wheels, and then really get down into the nuts and bolts, because it's just as impressive as everything that I said prior to this. The biggest unfortunate part about this particular watch is the timing of when it came out. 2007 was the year of the financial crisis, and nobody really cared about the watches. Sort of makes me wish that they came up with this year or last year. I think there'd be a lot more hype about it. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. As usual, oh, wait a minute. What's on my wrist, right? Keep forgetting to do that. And again, told you guys, lately I've been on this vintage gig, and today I'm wearing my A serial original Genta Royal Oak 5402 SD. I've been wearing vintage watches for the last few weeks. I think I'm gonna stop, go back to some of the more modern stuff, maybe put on a modern AP or Richard Mille, and go from there. Again, guys, if you like this episode, you gotta hit that like button. And if you're watching this episode and you're not subscribed, you always tell me, guys, I should have more subscribers, I deserve more subscribers. So if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I know it's a pain in the neck, you gotta log into your Gmail account, etc., etc. But do hit the subscribe button. It means a lot to me. It just shows me that I'm doing something right and you guys are enjoying what I'm putting out there. But other than that, I'll see you guys next week for more watch reviews and other videos.